Hello and welcome to episode 64 of the Critical Twits Gaming Podcast, our board talk podcast for February 2017, where we investigate the Pandemic Epidemic. Hello, welcome back. I'm Brian Ennis.
I'm Aaron Vinsky.
And I'm Joe Lewin.
And we are the Critical Twits. This is Board Talk, our monthly show where we talk about board games. And in honour of the winter flu season, which I think has variously attacked all of us at various points.
Yeah, it's been pretty vicious this year.
Yeah, so it is the season to get sick and feel terrible about life. So we thought we would investigate the modern board gaming phenomenon that is Pandemic. We've all played Pandemic in many of its various guises.
Yep.
So today we're going to be taking you through a bit of a what is Pandemic, a bit of an explanation for those of you not in the know, and then we're going to work our way through some different versions of Pandemic. Starting with On the Brink, moving on to Contagion, Pandemic Legacy, and Pandemic
Reign of Cthulhu. Yeah.
Yes. Not tiny Cthulhus in droplet form falling from the sky, but reigning as some kind of glorious, otherworldly...
He just come out of the sea, so he could be quite drippy.
Yeah, and he is big.
Drippy Cthulhu.
So, Pandemic was released by Z-Man Games, not Z-Man Games, because this is Britain, don't you know? And we all say these things correctly. In 2007, designed by Matt Leacock. Pandemic is now so big and so mighty that it has its own Wikipedia page.
Turns up on a truck when you buy it as well.
I have had to tie my copies down.
Yeah, actually, your giant pile of different versions of Pandemic is fairly impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 boxes stuffed into one that I have had to wrap up with something to stop it just popping out and exploding.
Twine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a sign of its popularity. It has 3 expansions: On the Brink, In the Lab, and State of Emergency. And there are lots and lots of sort of spin-offs or twists or other versions of the game, including The Cure, Contagion, Pandemic Legacy, Reign of Cthulhu, and Iberia, which I think is all to do with finely sliced Spanish ham, which is something of a speciality on this podcast.
Well, we did win an award once.
We did, for the best use of thinly sliced ham.
Yeah.
Or was it the best use of ham? Thinly sliced or no?
Used to thinly sliced ham.
You know, other people used ham better in a non-sliced fashion.
Yeah.
Fuckers.
Oh no. It's a very, very popular game. It's kind of one of those staples, and quite often most of the gaming shops I've visited will have like a Pandemic section with lots and lots of Pandemics.
Yeah.
All together. So yeah, it has been a kind of an epidemic. It is its 10th birthday.
Is it that old?
Yeah, 2007, like I said a minute ago. When you weren't listening.
No, wasn't it?
And there were 2 different versions of it released last year, Cthulhu and Iberia. It's still going strong.
I assume Iberia is... Because I have no idea about Iberia. It's just a different style of thing? Or is it a complete change like the Cthulhu one?
We haven't played it yet, so I can't be 100% sure, but from looking at the box, it looks like a restyling, so it seems to be set in
Iberia.
Yeah, in Iberia.
Yeah, you have historical diseases.
Yeah,
and
historical characters.
I think. There's something to do with managing
it's
the
medieval
water supply.
Pandemic.
Yeah,
rather than
1800s.
Yeah. Romantic. I'm going more by literature. Getting
More
typhoid
Victorian.
and shitting myself to death is not romantic in any way, shape, or form.
Well, it depends on the crowd you hang around with.
Very special.
I still don't think it's romantic.
I don't know if you
erotic, maybe. If you're that way.
Oh, you shat yourself, lovely. Maybe.
Still not romance, is it? Pity, maybe.
It's supposed to be shit out rose petals, maybe.
That's an impressive disease.
I've heard of unicorns farting rainbows. I haven't heard of like Casanova shitting out rose petals.
Did you not see the deleted scenes in the extended version?
You know, David Tennant had to film that scene 8 times. So although it looks like he only shits out 1 rose's worth of petals, he actually had multiple roses stuffed up his arse.
Killed that.
Yeah, I did. So, what is Pandemic? Pandemic is a cooperative game for 2 to 4 players, although you could play it on your own very, very easily.
Yeah.
You are trying to save the world from deadly diseases. 4 deadly diseases. You will play various characters that work for the Centre for Disease Control. And you will travel about the world trying to cure the sick and find the overall cures for the different diseases that are ravaging the world. It's kind of a race against time. You have a deck of cards of all these different cities across the world, and each turn more and more of them will get infected as you're trying to sort of do battle and stop them. Eventually there will be an outbreak. Again, it's another card that you draw from the deck, and this is what I like about Pandemic, is that the locations that have already been revealed are then shuffled and placed back on top of the deck.
Yeah, it's nice that they're not shuffled in, they're placed on the top.
They're placed on the top, which means that you know where the infection is going to hit next, roughly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if there's been 15 cards, you know it's one of those 15 places.
Yeah.
You're probably near some of them because you've been running over there. When the cards are drawn, diseases appear. Little cubes of disease that look really edible, but they're not. Don't eat them. You might die.
Each one contains a tiny disease.
Yes. What if if you were a terrorist, like with a really perverse sense of humour? Terrorists aren't really renowned for their sense of humour, but putting some kind of anthrax in no.
It's a really weird way of killing off all the geeks to try and poison video board games.
Yeah, because all the information technology infrastructure of the country that you're attacking would be fucked. They'd be plunged back into the medieval times, and then it would be ripe for your wily terrorist takeover. When you have too many diseases in the same place, they outbreak, they spread and infect various cities. When there have been too many outbreaks, you lose the game. Yep. How else can you lose the game, Aaron?
If you run out of disease cubes to put down,
so
too many people have died.
There's a finite number of each.
24 cubes of each. But there's also a deck of what are essentially your resources. So the cards for each of the cities for you to fly to design the cure from and stuff like that. But they are your resources. Once they run out, the game's over because you've got no more money left.
Yeah, so you draw a couple of those each turn as a player.
Yeah.
The game is very much timed because you've got all these different things that can sort of run out.
Yeah.
So it stops the game dragging.
Yeah.
But the sort of semi-random nature of where the outbreaks are, I mean, you shuffle them into different piles and they're kind of spread semi-randomly.
Yeah, so if you've got 5 of the epidemics in your deck, which is a normal amount of epidemic cards, you have 5 equal piles of your resources, and then they're randomly shuffled into each pile. So you could have 2 next to each other, you could have them evenly spread out.
But the most you would have next to each other would be 2.
Yes.
And you'd know that there'd be a nice safe distance from the rest of that little miniature section of the deck. But that can... If you get one and you go, oh, we've got a bit of time, and it was the bottom one and the next one's the top one, you're... I mean, I've played games where we've had an epidemic straight away.
Yes, yeah.
So that can be really... You're very much up against it immediately.
Yeah.
Although you do get a little bit of breathing room, you can have some of like your outbreak counter really far down to start with. The way that you go about curing the diseases is these cards you're drawing from a separate deck are colour-coded by disease. They're each related to a city. As Aaron said, you can use them to fly to those cities, or you can go to that city, meet up and go, I have this bit of information about people from Bogota. They're immune to this disease. Here is some science that I did. This is how the game works in my head, by the way.
Well, the scientists are massively fucking creepy.
The way you cure diseases then is you collect sets of these cards related to each disease. Once you've got 5, or in some cases 4, depending on your character ability, you can rush to a research station, and you can build new research stations. But again, they require some of these resources, and their time is ticking. And you can trade them in, you cure the disease, then it becomes much easier to remove the cubes of disease that are about, and if you completely get rid of them all, the disease is eradicated, and then no more of that disease can come out of the deck. So if you've cured the yellow disease, then and you flip one of the yellow cities, you'll go, ha, everyone is safe, it's fine. The disease is there, but no one cares. Everyone's immune. The game has a race against time feel to it. And one of the things I really enjoy about it is that tension when you're up against it, and the game could go either way.
Yeah.
And you're flipping that card or drawing that card to see whether you're going to get an event or some resources that are going to make things much easier for you, or whether you're going to get that final epidemic that finishes off the game and means you've lost.
Yeah, definitely. I have very rarely played games of Pandemic where it hasn't been down to the wire. So it's not been down to, if that card is that city, we're out of the game because we misplanned this a couple of turns ago, or we've won the game but only just because one turn extra and that it would have been over. It's always been very, very close to being on the wire, but it's plannable. There's normally the correct method of doing things that you can see that can stack the odds in your favour.
I've played Pandemic less than you two.
Yeah.
And the games have been fairly close. But I never feel it's quite as, oh my god, we're screwed, as something like Dead of Winter. But that might just be because I'm not as invested for whatever reason.
Dead of Winter is a 2-hour game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've spent more time getting.
Yeah, and it's just
Pandemic is 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, so you've invested. I suppose that's what it is. You've invested so much more of your time.
Yeah, it's like, if we don't win, that's 2 hours wasted. Yeah.
Yeah. And you are playing a faceless... Well, they're not faceless. A nameless, that's the word I was looking for. Maybe in Cthulhu Pandemic you might play something faceless and eldritch and strange, but you're playing a nameless, I am the dispatcher. Whereas in something like Dead of Winter, there's a story there, the Crossroads card.
Mike Cho, the ninja, who dies when he goes to the gas station.
Yes, never take your ninja to the gas station.
They don't like it.
No, they don't. Yeah, I think what I would... I'd pass us over now to our own Lord of Nurgle himself, Aaron Ravinsky, who is the man who has all the Pandemic.
I am.
I'm just still gazing in awe at your Pandemic collection. When you said about we haven't played Iberia yet, have you got Iberia?
I haven't, no.
Okay.
It's something that's on the list to get because
Too
I'm
hammy?
interested. Yeah.
Not kosher.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So what is it that has made you have all the Pandemic? Is it like when someone comes home and they've got like a little ornament of an owl and they put it on the shelf, and then everyone goes to your house and you're hanging out and they go, oh, he collects owls, and then everything in your house suddenly is made of owls?
A little bit, actually. Yeah.
Is it one of those things you've been bought a lot as presents?
Actually, I bought most of the expansions myself.
Okay.
The Reign of Cthulhu and State of Emergency were bought for me for as presents.
Okay.
But the first two expansions and Contagion I bought for myself because I enjoyed the base game. There becomes a point where that starts to become a little bit stale.
Yeah, I mean it's a good game, and it's one of the top rated games of all time on various websites and similar places, but it is finite in its capacities.
Well, it's like you said earlier, there becomes a point where it's almost formulaic in how you fix it.
Yes.
Like you get to a certain point and you go, right, we need to do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And it's one of the issues, because we mentioned Pandemic before.
Yeah.
During the Christmas Games for Families.
Yes.
And I think that we highlighted that if you've got a player that knows what they're doing,
that can ruin it.
They have the tendency to go, we should do this, because you know how to beat it at that point.
Was one of the reasons I bought On the Brink, because it introduced the Bioterrorist, which we had a game of earlier.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm the player who knows this system well enough because I've played it loads of different people. I could be the bioterrorist and mess with them, and they get to play the game as normal, but with me being a dick.
Yeah, you successfully ruined our fun.
Yeah, it's great.
Who do you play it with? Who do you pull Pandemic out with?
My family a lot of the time, actually. My wife likes playing it quite a lot because it's cooperative. I've got two friends of mine who are now board gamers because of it.
Was it the first proper board game? I'd say proper board game. Modern board game.
Not bullshit like Monopoly.
Yes. yeah, I think so, yeah. We went on... I brought Pandemic round theirs one time and they got really on with it because it was cooperative. They never played a cooperative board game before. It was different.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think board games, they think competition.
Yeah.
It's a game, you win a game. But actually...
You can work together on this one and do that, which has been nice. It's why it's worked well with my family because...
No conflict.
We're not a high conflict family as a general rule, so we prefer a game where we can try and work together with something.
Stop showing off about your happy childhood. Jesus. Rubbing it in my face.
And I think it's probably what appealed to my friends and stuff as well, was that we could actually cooperate with the game, because we used to play video games and stuff online cooperative ones quite a lot.
Yeah.
And it paralleled with that. And and taking all the expansions on holiday, and it was pretty much what we ended up doing most of the time. Most nights is play that while drinking. So
I've got a couple friends who have again recently sort of started getting into board games through various things, sort of introducing them to the world. And I bought last year for 2 different birthdays. I bought 2 different people Pandemic, the first one. Not because I'm dull and boring, I sometimes buy other things, but because I knew they were interested in board games, and it was something that I knew we could play together, and then they could take away and play with other people and kind of spread like a virus, the virus of board gaming.
It's not so over complex. It's not too difficult for somebody who's not massively into games to explain to somebody else who's not massively into games or never played before.
But it shows off a lot of the things that are good about board games.
Definitely.
I remember I bought for a friend of ours for their birthday about 3 or 4 months ago, and then we went round and played a game of it.
Yeah.
And I hadn't played Pandemic in quite a while at that point, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it was really great to see someone go, "Oh, this is amazing! Oh, we could do this."
Yeah, considering that friend is one of them who quite likes the "can we stuff each other over" type games.
Oh, she's cruel. She's a cruel, harsh mistress. She's our mistress of Lords of Waterdeep, who battered us like a chip shop sausage last time we played Waterdeep.
Yeah, and she takes a great pleasure in doing that as well.
What was the first time she had ever played it?
Just got it straight away. But it was the same with Pandemic.
You've all sulked and not played that since.
I've played it since.
Have you?
We played it without you one day. I think you were dead in a ditch.
Yeah, probably.
You were asleep in your bin.
I like my bin. So I mean, with how it's aged, like having not played it that much, I can still quite happily enjoy a game with it, but I can see it getting quite old for me after 7 or 8 games or so, maybe. Yeah. Especially if they're in reasonably quick succession.
Yes. Yeah.
So having the expansions is quite cool, and I would say that it's aging well enough that they keep bringing expansions out.
Yeah.
And they're not going to do that if it's not making them money. So people are obviously enjoying it still.
Yeah. And each of them are adding something new to the game. Yeah. They're not just little bits. They are completely changing it in some respects.
Well, keeping
the core elements.
Yeah. I think for me the biggest problem with it is that quarterbacking issue where... As I say, quarterbacking, that's the term for where one player starts to dominate and tell all the other players what they should be doing in their turn.
Yeah.
Because the way the game works is a system. Yeah. And there are a finite number of probabilities, especially once you had your first epidemic card down. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, these are the cities that were infected. They're the ones that are going to have to come back.
Yeah.
So... anywhere that's got 3 cubes, which is the most they can have, so it's like really, really diseased and festering.
Shit goes down,
if their card comes out again, you get an outbreak, which moves you closer to losing, and then it spreads to nearby cities. And you can have outbreak triggering an outbreak triggering an outbreak, and that can really just, death spiral very, very quickly. Yeah. So it's all about risk management in the game. It's kind of like a weird kind of cross between sort of set collection and area control.
Yeah.
In the game, because you're trying to manage where the diseases are, and you're trying to get the right cards to the right people in the right place to cure things, etc. But I think it's also very much a game of risk management where you're going, right, there is a 1 in 10 chance that that's going to come out next turn, which will lose us the game because it will hit that and hit that.
Yeah.
Someone needs to deal with that this turn if they can, and there are X number of ways you could get there. And it starts to be, if you're the kind of person that can remember all those cards, if you're the kind of person that can... I mean, I think Joe would be very much like this. You'd be going, that's what we need to do. This is the ideal move, the ideal play.
I've now played it, and if I do get like that a little bit, so I'm actively trying to make sure I don't overtake a game. But it's very easy to.
Yeah, well, this is something I've quite enjoyed because we've played it a couple of different versions of stuff today.
Yeah.
And being able to look at it and, I'm kind of going, oh, this seems like a really good idea. And with the way my brain works, and like you said, has that tendency to go, no, but this is the best plan.
Yeah.
But with people that know the game better than I do, which is nice. But I can see it, because we're all fairly similarly skilled when it comes to these kind of things. Playing it with new people, you'd have to really try to make yourself take a step back and let them fail almost.
Yeah, I think Pandemic, when I first played it, was one of those games where I died horribly and then I wanted to play it again. Because I'd realised different things we could have done and I was starting to discover the strategies to play the game.
Yeah.
But once you've played it a dozen times, 20 times, especially when you're introducing it to people, it becomes formulaic in that way.
Yeah.
But that's where the expansions come in.
How many games here could we say we've played 20 times?
Not that many. I mean, even Dead of Winter, which we love to pieces.
I think I've played Dead of Winter about a dozen times, and that's over quite a long period of time.
Yeah.
I've probably played that much Dominion.
Dominion's very quick to play.
It is. Certain cards come down in that, and you just go, I buy this and this and this, and I want that's the thing, and that can again become very formulaic. So
I mean, I can think of card games I've played that many times.
But
they're very different beasts to sort of a board game as a construct. There is a difficulty built into Pandemic. So if you're finding that you've twigged how it works, you can put in more epidemic cards. Yeah. And you can start things in different places, and it
reduce the deck. That's basically your counter, your timer.
So there's ways and means of adjusting the game, but there's some variance with the game that also can change it, because the roles that you play, each role has a different ability. Those roles are determined randomly, and some of them are just playing better than the others.
Yeah, definitely.
It's one of my few criticisms of it is that role system, because if you got to pick every time, you pick these ones because they are the best.
You'd always have the medic, you'd always have the dispatcher if there's enough of you playing,
the researcher who can cure easier,
and stuff like that, and it just
but that's why you pick it at random, I think.
It is, but you can also get stuck with 4 really crap people.
Or you could get 4 really good ones, and then you're like, we should probably add an extra epidemic in, or we're just going to walk this sucker.
Yeah, and I mean, fair enough, because it's the initial version. That's kind of going to happen. And to jump ahead a little bit for Reign of Cthulhu, I actually think all the ones in that are fairly balanced.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
But I do think that they are aware of some of the problems. I say they're problems. They're more problems once you've played the game a lot.
Yeah.
And most games I don't think I would play as much as I have played any Pandemic anyway.
Yeah.
So we're talking sort of extending the longevity of it rather than sort of real fundamental flaws in the game.
Yeah.
Aaron, again, you have a lot of the expansions. Now, one of the things I really enjoyed about playing Pandemic with you today is that you had some really shiny stuff that made the game just nicer to play, completely irrelevant.
Yes.
Not needed.
Yeah.
We've found this with a lot of board games. If it's just got little wooden cubes and coloured meatballs and stuff, and you go, yes, that's all right. But we get really excited. Like New Angeles.
Yeah.
We got so excited because it had little models in it.
Yeah.
It doesn't need models. They could have been cardboard cutouts. They could have been
You could play
coloured tokens, anything.
You could play most board games on some graph paper with some cut out paper tokens.
But part of the appeal of board games is that
physicality of it, the tactile the picking up and looking at the shinies.
And
it helps immersion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I really liked, you'll have to tell me where they come from. I really liked first of all the Petri dishes, the little plastic dishes that I remember from school.
And there's space to name the diseases on them as well.
Jeff, Tina. Where do they come from?
That's from the In the Lab expansion.
Cool.
So the Petri dishes and the nice vials that are.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, that was number 2.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed the vials didn't have anything in them.
Any natural liquid. I can understand. Health and safety wise why there isn't.
You just put food colouring in.
You can still drink that though, and that's still probably bad for you if it's been there for 6 years in a bottle.
You don't want it to split and leak viscous goo all over your board game. Because last time I leaked viscous goo on a board game, everyone got really upset with me. So they're all from the In the Lab expansion. That's really nice. Those bottles are quite chunky and heavy.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
They're good, like 2.5 inches tall.
Yeah.
And
solid plastic.
They look like proper like vaccine vials.
Yeah, they do.
They're about the same size.
So one of the first expansions for Pandemic was Pandemic on the Brink, which came out in 2009, 2 years later. This was designed again by Matt Leacock. We didn't really go into his pedigree. He'd probably be a familiar name. He has his own Wikipedia page as well, so he must be important. I just thought I'd list off some of the games that Matt Leacock has worked on. He did Forbidden Island.
Yeah, another cooperative.
Which we've played.
Yeah.
Forbidden Desert, which is very similar, but everything falls into the sand rather than into the sea. Thunderbirds.
Okay.
Released by Modiphius, the new Thunderbirds game. Nitwit, which I bought for Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
At Dragon League convention. And then we haven't played because we all bought so many games, or most of us, some of us. We just had far too many new things. We will get to it eventually. And last year he created Chariot Race. On the Brink, 2009. On the Brink adds in an extra player.
Yeah.
Who is not a cooperative player.
No.
Yay! That player is working against the rest of the group, dishing out the purple cubes of
Doom.
Purple cubes of Doom. Yeah, they're what lost us the game in the game that we played. And
don't sit there looking smug, you bastard.
I shout them out in all the right places.
That player plays a bioterrorist who is working against the rest of them and moves secretly around the board. They have a kind of like own secret bit of paper where they write things down and kind of hunch in the darkness. I was initially concerned that Pandemic can be hard enough.
Yeah.
But they've used the mechanics quite well. As we mentioned, that the cards that are drawn when an epidemic strikes are shuffled and placed back on.
Yeah.
So it gives you that kind of that ticking time bomb feel, and everything's going to hit the same place. People are going to get sicker in the same places. Now, the bioterrorist uses those as his own sort of, or her, their own resources.
Yeah.
So they're actually kind of slowing down the spread of the disease at certain points, because you might have, say, Baghdad is infested with the black cubes of infectious gonorrhea. I don't know.
What's this going to go? Black Death.
Black Death. Yeah. So Baghdad's got the Black Death. Then the bioterrorist draws that card looking for something good to do. That actually stops that coming up and sparking an outbreak for the players. Yeah, but what the terrorist can do is then drop a purple cube in amongst the Black Death, and then when it eventually does come back round, it'll go up with black cubes and go up with purple cubes.
Yes, there's half the number of purple cubes there is the other ones. There's only 12.
Yeah.
But they spread slightly differently. They don't outbreak like the other ones do. They go through what's known as a flare-up.
Yeah.
Which is something known in diseases.
Yeah.
Where it burns itself out, essentially. So normally, if you've got 3 cubes in a city and it goes through an outbreak, all the connected cities get a cube of that colour. With the purple cubes, the city that's got 3 goes down to 1, and all the connected cities have a cube in there.
So it stops repeated outbreaks happening over and over again?
Yes.
Yes.
So it gives you a little bit of an opportunity to try and keep it under control. Spreads it out further, but it's not as...
Spreads
dropping
it out
loads
the same,
of cubes at the same time.
It's not as dense in the initial areas.
Yeah. Now, as the other players move around the board, they can find the bioterrorist. If you end up in the same city as the bioterrorist has to say, "You found me."
Yeah, and put their piece on the board.
Put the piece on the board, so you know where they are. And then you can arrest them, take an action, but you can force... They can escape. They don't get eliminated from the game.
No, because it's a nice, happy game where you don't get to just shoot them.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed.
Yeah, it's a nice, happy game of millions of people dying of lurgy. Yeah, it's got a kind of hidden movement mechanic to it. It changes the game up quite nicely. As I said, I was concerned, but I needn't have been because it kind of...
Still had the same flow.
Yeah, it had the same flow. But it does introduce a new way of losing.
Yeah.
The bioterrorist can lose.
Yes.
If the players lose and there's no purple cubes on the board...
Everyone loses.
Everyone loses.
Yeah.
Hooray! And the bioterrorists can be knocked out if you eradicate the purple disease.
Yeah.
They've got nothing to do.
Yeah.
Although that would probably be quite rare.
Rare-ish.
Because you can discard cards to ping a cube wherever.
Yeah.
You would just ping one into a place that's not particularly near any of the people, and I would say it'd be very hard to eliminate.
If it played well.
Yeah. Now, this kind of adding that element of competition is quite interesting. It just changed the way the game is played, and it might not be for every group. As you said, Aaron, your family isn't into sort of competition in that way. I like it because it immediately stops that quarterbacking problem that we talked about earlier, because the players have to communicate openly.
Yeah,
the bioterrorist knows he's hacked the CDC. He can see your emails flying around the world. There you go.
Yeah.
So he knows your plans.
Yeah.
So there were points where me and Joe were trying to share information in a coded nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Generally, when Aaron was looking at his bit of paper, I couldn't show him a card because that's completely cheating, but I might make one of them just jump up and down.
Yeah. Which is that's perfect.
And look at the place where it is, and kind of, hey, how's your father?
But it's all stuff I could theoretically have seen, so it's not hidden. It's just cheeky.
Yeah, but
it's like coding an email. It's fine.
Yeah, but you might decide you wouldn't even like that in your game. That's fine. That's up to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it changed the game fundamentally because it was possible for me to make a substandard play based on the board state because I didn't know Joe's hidden information.
Yes.
Yeah. Which normally you'd openly share.
And playing the bioterrorist is an interesting angle. I quite enjoy doing it.
I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah. It reminded me a similar game to Fury of Dracula, which we talked about and praised on the podcast
it's
before.
A low-tech version of, but yes.
The move into the airports is the thing I quite like, because you can charter flights in Pandemic. You can either discard the city card you're in to fly anywhere in the world, or discard a city card to fly to there. Bioterrorist can do the same thing, but discards a card and says, "Oh, I've been spotted in this airport. You don't know whether I've landed in that airport or flown from it."
Yeah.
So it's like you can
nice
throw a bit of
touches.
misinformation you can use to throw things.
Yeah. I quite liked that. It solves that idea of someone taking over the game.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Or even, sometimes it can be a 4-player game and there could be 3 people taking over, and then one person's like, "Oh, I'm just doing what they say," and they feel they've lost their autonomy.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about board games is being able to make your own choices and to do things for yourself. Yeah, so I quite enjoyed that. I think it made me think of the game. My brain, when I first played Pandemic, was kind of trying to do that computational thing and work out all the possibilities and kind of grinding. And I enjoyed that, that kind of challenge. And I felt that come back when we played on the Brink today.
Yeah.
You're not just playing against the game, you're playing against a person, which is always more of a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, it also has a couple of other modes in there, which are just slight variations on the regular thing.
Yeah. Virulent Strain, which makes the first disease that becomes an epidemic extra tough to get rid of, or do special things on the board. And the mutation element, which has the purple cubes in, there's a 5th disease to try and get rid of that acts in a completely different way to the other diseases. It doesn't necessarily spread the same way, and different things happen with it. Yeah, I think I'd say Bioterrorist is probably its major change.
But then there's some nice little modes if you don't want the competitive thing. It's not just a competitive
expansion. No, it's got the other stuff it adds in. If you're getting bored of the normal game, it changes it up enough that you're having to think a little bit differently about stuff because you're having to abstract yourself a little bit more now. Yeah, and I quite enjoyed I've enjoyed the cooperative expansions when I've played it with people as well. Cool. Yeah,
it's a nice way of varying it. Now, we didn't play today in the lab.
No.
Aaron, you're again our resident Nurgle Lord. How have you found in the lab? Just very quickly.
I really like it in the lab. Actually, it's the one I tend to come to the most because it adds another board state onto the game. Yeah, as well as the nice extra pieces it gave in the game, adds an extra board where instead of just discarding cities of the same colour to cure a disease, you have to take elements of the virus or the cubes of the virus, put it into a lab, and then put it through processes to extract information from it. You've got cards that need disease cubes of different colours to make a cure for one colour, so it becomes an extra puzzle.
It's the proper biology nerd edition. Awesome.
You sounded really excited then.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah. It's where the Petri dishes are specifically for that element as well, because you can extract different disease colours from them, or you can expand more from one colour because you need 3 to... Yeah, it's a second set of colours. What I tend to find when I'm playing the game is that somebody or 1 or 2 people will be the researchers in one of the research stations, going through and making the disease work, making sure enough of the disease keeps back in the pile so it doesn't lose the game, or making sure there's enough to cure the diseases, while the other 2 disaster manage essentially.
Okay.
So there's not different elements of the game, which again that can detract from the quarterbacking a little bit if you've got a player who is likely to do that. You put them into the lab. You're the lab assistant. You're going to be doing this essentially, and other people are focused on other stuff. They're focused on their element. I need you to go get this for me. Okay, cool. And that's their element of trying to control it.
Yeah.
Which it does add in extra epidemic cards as well, so you can have this ultra hard mode where I think there's like 8 epidemic cards in by now. Yeah.
But then if you're after that challenge and you've mastered the formulaic approach, then that's a fantastic way of expanding the game.
Yeah.
There's a team mode in it as well. So you play with 2 teams of 2 or 3 people each, where you're competing. You're still trying to win the game as such, but you're trying to compete over who cures the diseases the quickest or in the best way.
Okay. Nice. Who was the best sciencing?
Yeah. You're competing over funding essentially to do it.
Pharmacology Wars, the board game.
Yeah.
Moving away slightly from the core game then, we also played 2014's Pandemic Contagion, which is a very different kind of game. Wasn't designed by Matt Leacock, it was designed by Carey Grayson.
Sorry, I fell out of a chair trying to check.
Plays 2 to 5 people, and you take the role of competing diseases.
Yeah. The tagline on the box is, "You are the disease, there is no cure."
Hooray! Yeah. Rather than playing it's not the CDC, it's the World Health Organisation that you play. Got that wrong all the way through.
Yeah, well, you start off with the CDC.
Yeah, you start off as your base, that kind of thing. You play as the diseases, and rather than having terrible things happen to you in the form of people dying, you have terrible things where the World Health Organisation might invent a cure for certain things, or they might inoculate a population, or they might ground flights and similar to hold you back. So it's competitive, not cooperative.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although you will work together slightly. You'll have a kind of tableau of different cities. You will place your cubes of virus. They've kept the cubes of virus, the jelly-like cubes of loveliness that you place out. And each city, based on its population, I think, can hold a certain number of disease before it's eradicated, wiped off of the map. So you're not eradicating diseases, you're eradicating people.
Yeah.
You score points based on whether you were the first disease on the scene, or whether you're one of these young upstart diseases that has come along later and just kind of finished off the weak people.
The entire aim of the game is to be the hipster disease.
You want to be there first because you score the most points, but each card has an ability. So if you're the disease that turns up later and triggers the destruction of the city, you get to use the ability on the card. You can score points for the first 3 people on the city, but if you really want the ability, you can use it. And one of the things I liked about that was that your disease can grow in deadliness as you go through, similar to the way you collect colours of of cities. This one, you're collecting different colours of virus, and using those to do various things, whether it's move your virus into a new city or to kill more people within the city that you're already in. You can also use them to mutate your virus. So at the start of the game, if you want to draw a card, you can only draw 1 card, but you can upgrade that until by the end of the game you could be drawing 4 cards.
Yes.
So the same action is having 4 times as much.
Because you've increased the incubation stat of your virus.
Yeah, so it incubates quicker.
Yeah.
You can increase the
infection
rate, so you put more cubes down each time you infect.
Yep. Or
you can increase your resistance, so you can make your disease hard to eradicate. So a lot of the cards, the event cards that are played each turn, will say, they've inoculated the population. You need to lose this number of cubes.
Yeah.
Or drop this many cards from your hand. And you can lower your resistance to resist that ability happening.
Yes.
So you could have 2 resistance. It says take 2 cards out your hand. You're like, I want these cards for next turn. No, I'll lower it by 2.
Or lower it by 1 to keep that one card that you
really, really want. Yeah. So I quite like that it has that feel of you're kind of progressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fairly lightweight, I'd say, as a game.
Yeah. Very.
And it was a bit odd because it just got started.
Yeah.
And then it was over.
Yeah.
It's one of those kinds of games. Yeah, 12 turns. So that's everyone has 12 goes. Or when there's only 2 cities left, you start with 8, but you can have more added in through various events and similar.
Yeah. I didn't feel so much like that with that game. We have it in a lot of things. Like when we played Mainframe, the Android one, that very much felt like.
Yeah.
And it's done. We've had the same thing with Settlers. feels like it's only kind of just getting going a little bit.
We normally play to more points in sets.
Yeah, exactly.
But you didn't think you were happy with the
felt it ran the course fairly well.
Yeah.
There are different stages to the game, and I think the last bit of the game is quite quick as you're trying to mop up the last few remaining points, or people, as it is in this case, really. But yeah, I thought it was all right.
Yeah.
I was very mathsy at the end.
Yeah.
Because I had one move that could draw.
You were
me
either going to draw with me or lose.
Yeah, and I had to do the right thing, and I had to sit and just go that.
Because you went, I'll do this, and I'm going, yes, do that thing. No, he's not going to do that.
Yeah.
I went, no, that's a terrible idea.
It shows up more in the 2-player variant. It rushing too quickly, just starting to get to a point where a tactic you can imply appears and the game's over.
Contagion isn't as well thought of as Pandemic itself.
I can see why.
But it's not an unenjoyable game. It's quite a cheap game, isn't it?
Yeah, it was 15 odd quid, I think, when I got it.
Yeah.
And there is worse games with the Pandemic later on.
Such as?
Pandemic The Cure. It's fucking awful.
Have you played Pandemic The
Yes.
Cure?
Yeah.
Oh, what's wrong with The Cure?
Oh god, we should have played that.
I don't have it.
Oh,
I played it at a board game cafe. I went, I'm picking this up. It's a roll your luck dice game
Okay.
that uses some of the same elements of Pandemic, where the guy can outbreak and disease, and the randomness of the dice roll makes the game almost impossible to make any kind of tactile decisions in.
So it's like zombie dice, it's just luck based rubbish.
Completely.
Well, there's an element of pushing your luck in that game.
Yeah, but that's pure. I like zombie dice because that is purely what it is.
Yeah.
It is just pushing your luck, and that's down to it.
And you know that, and it's... Yeah, it's
And
kind
you
of
don't
silly
walk
and
into
fun.
it going, cool, we have to work together to do a thing and make some stuff happen.
It's still a cooperative game with The Cure. You're still trying to do the same thing on the board. It's set up slightly differently.
Yeah.
You're still trying to do the same thing. You're trying to stop spreading. You're trying to stop the epidemics outbreaking all over the place. But you can't make proper decisions when you're going, well, I've got nothing I can do this turn. Pointless.
Yeah.
You know, whereas in Pandemic, you might draw some cards that aren't any good to you, but they'll be good to somebody else, and you could at least go and do something that can at least stem the tide a little bit. You always feel like you've got some decision you can make that is helping.
You have agency.
Yes.
You have control of what's going on, whereas rolling the dice could just give you a really duff turn.
Yeah.
How long does a turn take? So I don't mind games like that if I'm not waiting ages to have another go.
Not that long, to be honest. More of it's going, what's the most effective thing I can do? I think so. We probably didn't spend ages on it, deliberating over everything. So it doesn't take that long. I remember us playing it for about 20 minutes or so because we only played the one game. I think it's.
I went.
Yeah, I went.
Okay.
Whereas, Contagion, it's okay. I think is probably the summarisation of it. It was enjoyable.
I'd play it again.
It was about half an hour. It's quite a light game, like a nice palate cleanser game.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
waiting for your role play group to turn up. So a year after Contagion in 2015, we had Pandemic Legacy. Season 1 of Pandemic Legacy. Available in a red box and a blue box that seem identical. Pandemic Legacy Season 1, which is now the top rated game on Board Game Geek, making it officially king stroke queen stroke tentacled overlord of all board games. Pandemic Legacy, it's in the name. It is a legacy style game where each box can only be played through as one series of linked campaigns. It's not the kind of game that just lives on your shelf and you can put it out as and when. The board state changes. You may add stickers to it.
Yeah.
You may rip up cards, which felt so good the first time I ripped something up for Risk Legacy, but also like my stomach lurched and I was nearly sick. So I was like, I paid money for this. And I was like, no, I've paid money for this. Pandemic Legacy, co-designed by Matt Leacock and Rob Daviau. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. If not, it's my fault. Who is credited as inventing these legacy-style games, starting with Risk Legacy. He's also... He then did Pandemic Legacy, and recently he's done Seafall, which is a 4X version of the Explore, or Trade, etc., version of the Legacy formula. Now, we played quite a lot of Risk Legacy.
Did?
I think people stopped playing it because I had all the nuclear missiles and everyone else had nothing but the clothes they turned up in.
Well, I got very close to getting something a few times, and Colin always ruined it out of spite.
Yeah. Now, Colin is dead now, so we might be able to return to it. I picked up, when it first came out, Pandemic Legacy. Myself, Aaron and Colin, the original podcasting trio, were playing through it. We were playing a game sort of every other week or so.
Yeah.
When we were recording podcasts, we'd have a quick game. We tried to do something fun with it and failed.
Yeah.
So they will never see the light of day, but we did some recordings about it. But then we stopped. And it's the kind of thing, as I said, you need really the same players.
Yeah.
And Colin, as we said, he lives in a bush upside down, covered in odd tattoos.
Yeah.
And waistcoats.
And waistcoats, yes. So what happened, Aaron?
Well, what happened between each game state?
What happened to why didn't we finish playing Pandemic Legacy?
Well, as you were saying, it requires a kind of similar grouping to play. You've got your character that you've kind of invested in as such.
Yeah.
And we stopped having as much time to do it while Colin was with us, and then he had to go because of...
He's no longer with us.
Yeah. And yeah, trying to incorporate somebody else into the game, which involves spoiling the first 3 months, I think we played.
Yeah, the game is set over the course of a year, and each month is a game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you fail, you can play it again.
Yeah.
If you fail twice, you don't play that again, the game still moves on, and you have different consequences. So in Legacy games, there's like packs of cards, boxes of tokens. But yeah, there's some really good surprises in there. We saw some really good stuff in Risk Legacy. We don't have to spoil it for anyone, but there's some really big tubs with loads of stuff in. And you're like, this has changed the game completely. And yeah, Risk Legacy was doing that. The first game is just a game of Pandemic. And then depending on whether you win or lose twice, if you lose twice, oh dear, because it is equivalent to the easiest difficulty setting of normal Pandemic. But, you know, if you've not played before, that might happen.
Yeah.
And then it sort of snowballs from there. So you might, if you fail lots, there's a box in there that says if you failed like 3 months in a row, open this box.
Yeah.
I think a boxing glove comes out on a spring and punches you in the face.
Open it just releases a virus.
Yes. The secret anthrax compartment. Yeah, I was really enjoying it.
Yeah.
The game felt very different already after only a couple games. I was really looking forward to it. Life got in the way, and I think it's a bit like committing to a role-play campaign. You need people that are going to play X number of games in X amount of time at these dates regularly, and we just didn't have that.
But now you see, this is the thing, and as much as I love the idea of legacy games,
yes,
and I was thinking about this earlier when we were saying we were going to cover Pandemic and the legacy element and stuff, and like I am all of the fucking excited for the new Netrunner legacy game.
Yeah,
oh my god, I cannot wait for that to come out.
It seems to be the big new trend in board gaming.
Yeah, but I don't know if I like it.
You've played Risk.
Yes.
You've not played Pandemic.
No.
I think Pandemic is a better game than Risk.
My issue with the legacy thing isn't the quality of the game.
Yeah.
Risk isn't that good.
But we still played 10 games or so.
I really enjoyed the legacy aspect of it.
Because it made it better.
And it twists it and it turns it, it takes it in different directions, so it's a new game every time.
You need to have a consistent group.
Yeah.
Which can be a struggle.
Yeah.
If someone stops playing, you have that element of going, right, that's either spoilers for new people.
Yeah.
Like I've said, I don't really mind. I'll quite happily carry on from where you guys were if we were going to carry on playing it.
Yeah, you could be Colin.
It bothers me because you might lose out on. Like if I went, I don't really want to play that because I'd rather play from the beginning. I don't want those spoilers.
Yeah.
That's wasted.
You can't start it.
Yeah. No, you can't restart. You can restart a campaign setting.
Yeah.
You can introduce a new character to a role.
Well, you can introduce a new character, or you could go, 2 of the 4 members of the party have gone. We've got 2 new people in. The other 2 people might just go, we'll restart. Like I'm sure if we had the option of pressing a button, we would restart season 1 with the new.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would love to play that with the 4 of us.
You can't do that because you stick things on the board and you tear things up and everything else.
Well, Aaron, you said you've got a copy that you didn't get to use.
Yeah.
I would quite happily start again, but I have spent my £60 on my copy that's now going to sit there forever
and not get played. And that is my only issue with legacy games. It doesn't matter what game it is.
I think I wouldn't if I knew I'd never play it again. I would go through and I would unpick all the boxes and do everything in order and look at it from a kind of looking at how the cogs work kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
perspective, and looking at how the game was built and what they've done.
See,
but I don't think that's everyone's cup of tea.
And I love the idea of terminal directive because it only needs one other person to be useful.
There's a big risk involved with...
Yes.
Any other board game you spend £60 on that's not a legacy game, if the people you start playing with you
don't
normally
like
play
it
or whatever, you can play it with other people.
Yeah.
You can't do that with a legacy game.
Yeah. And like if Aaron and I were to get his copy and play it with you and Jamie, Joe, we would know the things from the first couple months.
You would.
We'd know what happens in February. We know what happens in March. We'd know ahead of time, and that would change things a little bit.
Yeah.
It did, however, solve some of the problems we mentioned about Pandemic. Mm-hmm. You choose your role; it's not randomly determined.
Yeah.
You name your person, so you've got a collection of different actual characters rather than just nameless dispatcher.
You have Jeff the Dispatcher.
We also had a character called Penicillin who was really good at curing stuff. Been waiting to share that with the podcast audience for over a year.
I think it proved quite nicely.
Yeah. It's mostly amusing just to me and Aaron.
Only amusing to you and Aaron.
But yeah, you've got some big containers.
Yeah. Do you know what I really like?
Various different bits and pieces.
They're all the same size.
Yes.
You could have 2 cards in there. You could have
a whole load of stuff.
5 different types of disease.
Yeah,
and
there's a
all
weird.
kinds of...
This is odd.
Dossier.
Like a weird kind of dossier file, top secret mark.
Oh,
thing.
I like that.
Yeah, it will say unpeel this and stick it in Y and do this, etc., etc. And some of them are cards.
Yeah.
And some of them are sort of add-on bits and things like that.
Rules expansions and stuff like the Were Risk Legacy.
Okay.
And then there's loads in there. If you are really if you get into Pandemic and you've got a regular group, it's almost a no-brainer. It's so well respected.
Yeah.
And the little bits that we played of it, I really enjoyed. But bear in mind,
it's a commitment.
Yeah.
That commitment. Yeah. It's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I think we've said this before on the podcast about Risk Legacy, but again, you're playing with Pandemic Legacy, only 12 to 24 games.
Yeah.
Most board games you play, that's probably the upper limit of how often you play it, and then you put it to one side and not play it again.
Some groups
play something
meet more regularly.
Yeah.
Some groups find a niche and they really burrow into that and they really get their enjoyment.
Yeah.
I found most gaming groups I've been a part of will have favourites that come out regularly.
Yeah.
So we have our favourites that we'll dig out. Waterdeep will dig out. Dead of Winter will dig out.
Or Arctic Scavengers.
Scavengers. Yeah, other various games that come out regularly. But we've also got a quite broad range.
Yeah.
I think we do that thing of chasing the next kind of high. I like something new. I like something different and interesting.
Yeah.
But then that fades, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Legacy, rather than taking our word for it, I think other people's word for it is well thought of. Now, what I tried to start about 5 minutes ago, the idea of you wanting certain roles over certain other roles and that kind of thing, and not having kind of a connection to your character is very much present in it's kind of corrected, and the game actually makes you use different characters. So yeah, you might get attached to your plucky generalist who can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, as I was playing for most of the game. But Aaron, you and Colin were actually changing characters in order to combat the new rules and the new ideas that were coming in. It would introduce a new idea, and quite often you get a character that would be better at dealing with that new situation. So it'd be like, cool, you've got to play the game in a different way if you want to succeed.
Yeah.
And sort of change it. And you lose a little bit of that quarterbacking because everyone's responding to a brand new situation.
Yes.
So it's not like the guy who's played it a million times and saying, we wouldn't go there because we've got a 4 in 7 chance of... I think the thing, for me, what appeals to me about the Legacy games, just very quickly, is it bridges that gap between the board gaming and the role-playing. The role-play that we do tends to have, you play the same characters over a period of time. You develop a story and you have progression.
Yes.
Whereas board game tends to be the same thing every time. You might get better at it.
They're nice little enclosed packages which work beautifully for some people.
Yeah, whereas for me, it's like, you really like this board game, then here we'll do something extra with it and take it to the next level. Last but not least on our list of pandemics that we've played is Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
2016. Quite recently, it was Gen Con 2016, I do believe, and then it kind of rolled out very slowly, much like the grasping eldritch tentacles of Lovecraftian Doom. From there, 2 to 4 players, cooperative again, like the original Pandemic. Matt Leacock and Chuck Yeager are the designers. Obviously, Lovecraftian things, Cthulhu is all about the horror, the dread, the tension, the creeping tendrils of eldritch doom. Did we feel any of that playing Cthulhu Pandemic?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I got the same level of tension that I do playing Pandemic.
Yeah, I mentioned right back at the beginning of this podcast, a million years ago now, that I liked the tension of Pandemic, flicking the card over and going, oh, it's an epidemic, everything's falling apart.
Yeah.
It has a similar feel.
Yeah.
It expands from having diseases that then cause outbreaks and spread. You have cultists.
Yeah. Summon elder god.
Yeah. You can also have Shoggoths appear.
Yeah.
So big gribbly creatures. These all have nice models.
Yeah.
Well, Shoggoths and cultists do.
Yeah. And the
elder gods have nice cards.
The elder gods have nice cards, and the players have nice models for the different characters that they play.
Yeah, which is cool.
And they're not beautiful models. They're
standard board game fare.
but
they're good quality.
They're on par.
Yeah.
They're not like crap, but there's much better models out there.
Yeah, if it's model-centred stuff, but I think for a game that probably you wouldn't expect models in, they're reasonable.
They're serviceable, and you can tell what they are.
I think I've been ruined slightly by New Angeles because the models in that were beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, although they were 3 models replicated, so you had like 5 or 6 of each.
Yeah.
These are the cultists are replicated, the Shoggoths the same, but each of the 8 different characters has an individual model, which is really nice actually. And you could sort of paint them and such like if you so desired. Joe, you had a great time arranging the spare cultists into a summoning circle. Holding hands.
Yeah.
It's the happiest you seemed all day.
Yeah, I was quite amused by that.
How did it compare to the base game of Pandemic? Is it very different, or is it fairly similar?
I would say it's fairly similar with a couple of different moving parts.
Yes.
Mostly Shoggoths.
Yeah. Yeah, the Shoggoths are different, and
the gates mechanic.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. It's like you've got 4 already placed research stations down that you have to go.
Yeah,
but you have to go to that specific one. Yeah, you're not trying to cure the disease, you're trying to shut the gates from whence these horrible creatures are coming.
This is why when you're out in the country it always says please shut these gates. It's because roaming Shoggoths will escape.
They will, and our countryside is littered with desiccated gods of elder times. Yeah, it felt simpler.
Yes,
you're trying to shut the gates, but you're collecting the same coloured cards, but if there's 4 different coloured areas again. Mm-hmm. If you're within that area, you can swap the cards about. The cards that you're collecting as players you're not collecting Bogota, which happens to be yellow, which lets you go to Bogota, or fly out from Bogota. You're just collecting green, yellow, red. Yeah, you've got Arkham, which is the whole place. You've got the 4 different areas taken from Lovecraftian mythos, and you are trying to close those portals. But you can go. So at the start of the game, we started in the green area, so the first thing me and Aaron did was I gave all my green cards to Aaron because he had a couple, I had a couple, and then suddenly we were almost ready to close the gates. So that mechanic has been sort of simplified. You don't need to worry about getting back to research stations. You go to the colour, the place in that colour, and you can take the bus rather than fly.
But only from places with a bus station.
Yeah, now so it's limited, and then you discard a colour of where you're at to move anywhere you like, or you can move anywhere in the same region. So it's okay. It's different.
Well,
it felt slightly easier in the collection stakes.
Yeah, a little.
Because you didn't need to both run over to Baghdad to swap the Baghdad card over. No. You just needed to both get to the same spot in the blue area.
And I think it plays on well because obviously these are all cities that have got airports compared to in the Cthulhu one where you've got to go to the bus station for the town.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was particularly simpler or easier than normal Pandemic.
Okay.
I think where a lot of that idea comes from, for us, is we're comparing this game quite largely to the other Cthulhu game that we had.
Yeah.
Name escapes me at the moment.
Arkham Horror.
Arkham Horror. Yeah. And it's much simpler than Arkham Horror.
Yeah. Yes.
In the best possible way.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a better version
And
of Arkham Horror.
I think that's why it feels simple.
Yeah,
Because we're comparing it to that. Comparing it to normal Pandemic, I don't think there's that much difference.
No. It does feel. I think because you've only got the cultists and the Shoggoths on the board, it feels a little bit like you've got less going wrong.
I mean, we had 2 gods away from Doom.
Yeah.
And there were several turns where we were like 3 more cultists, which is 1 turn.
If early in the game I hadn't been the magician, I wouldn't have had given Brian the extra turns to kill the Shoggoth early.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have the stop the summoning card that I managed to get early on as well, then that turn could have been horrendous.
Yeah.
I like the Shoggoths. They appear each time that there is an equivalent of an outbreak. What was it called? Evil Rises.
Yes.
Yes, the Evil Rises, some cultists appear and a Shoggoth appears.
Yeah.
They move around the board,
Yes.
which is really interesting. The biggest difference with this is that you have sanity for each of your characters.
Yes.
And if you encounter a Shoggoth, so as they move around the board, they might move into your space trying to get to these gates. Mm-hmm. They're trying to get to the gates and go home.
Yeah, it seems to be.
But when they get there, they then poke an elder god and go, "There's a gate, boss!"
Yeah.
And the elder god's influence increases. They're quite interesting because they make things worse for the players each time they go up.
They might have they either have an instantaneous effect or a continuous effect, depending on the god.
But the Shoggoths themselves, the Pandemic board is quite interconnected. There's lots of different ways to get to different places. Pandemic Cthulhu Reigns, Reign of Cthulhu. You know what I'm saying.
Cthulhu Reigns, how you ride him.
Yes. They have bottlenecks between the different areas.
Yes.
Each area they're kind of at the corners of a rectangle, and each one's only connected to the adjoining corners. There's no connection across the middle.
Nope.
And there's only one way to get between them.
Yes.
So if a Shoggoth is kind of parked on the bridge that you need to go through to go and do the thing you need to do, you've got to go through it. And when you encounter it, you have to roll a dice. You might lose sanity, or you might summon more cultists.
Yes.
If your sanity depletes, you flip your character card over, and there's a mad version of them that has a drawback rather than an ability. Mm-hmm. So you've got a good side and a bad side.
Yeah.
And a bit of bad luck, that might become a pressing issue. You can regain that in certain ways. Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting, and it brought some of that flavour.
Yeah.
You need to get through there, but you need to do the thing. You can use the gates to traverse the board, but it affects your sanity.
It's a nice update on what we said earlier about how you are strangely immune to diseases.
Yeah, you're not immune to what's going
the
on.
The game does affect you as a character.
Yeah, but it doesn't knock you out.
No, which is nice, because player elimination is rubbish.
Yes. And it doesn't do that thing that Arkham Horror does where you get lost in space and time for a turn and don't get to do anything.
Or 7, depending on what
you can,
stuff comes down.
Other bad things can happen.
Now, one of the things I like is the Elder Gods are... Obviously, Cthulhu is the end.
Yes.
But the rest of them are randomised.
Yeah, there's quite a few of them, and you draw 6 or 7.
Yeah, I mean, and we looked at it and went, oh God, if it came like this one, really early on...
That's really hard. But you don't judge the difficulty of the game based on... You don't tweak the difficulty based on that, which is interesting.
No, that's all randomised. They could have added a thing where play this one and this one first and second if you
put them in this order for the first game so you get used to the game, etc, etc.
It was good. It did what it was supposed to. I don't think it's too easy.
No.
No.
It might have seemed easy after a day of playing Pandemic games.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I think maybe they've simplified some of the core mechanics, but then added extra bits in.
Yeah.
Which I think we kind of grasped fairly intuitively.
Yeah.
But maybe, if you play if it's your first Pandemic style game, then it's reduced in difficult or complexity in certain places, but then increased elsewhere.
Others,
so I think it's still fairly accessible.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played Pandemic with my family for a long while now. It's been a couple of years, I think, since we last played a game, and we played Pandemic Cthulhu over Christmas, and didn't take that long to get playing of it.
No.
Clicked very easily. Again, it might have been because of that.
There's enough familiarity there, isn't there?
To click in, yeah. But it didn't seem like the complexity of those extra elements really made it too difficult to grasp, which was nice. Funny enough, we found that game really easy, the first one we played, but I think the character spread we had was kind of perfect, and the spread of the Elder Gods we had was kind of perfect, which is interesting. That's the only thing I have possibly as a criticism of Pandemic Cthulhu, is that the difficulty alteration doesn't really work, in my opinion.
No?
Well, we played the normal game.
Yeah.
Took out one card of each colour as the clues for you moving about and you're solving things. If we'd played the harder game, that'd have been 2 of those. There'd been 4 more cards gone. And
which makes it harder to find each of the bits you need.
It means you've got less time, and slightly harder to find the bits you're doing, but I don't really think that adds a great deal of difficulty to the game, unlike, say, with the Epidemic cards, you can add more of those in, that can cascade very quickly.
Yeah.
I can understand why they haven't done it, because as we found, when one thing starts going wrong with the Elder Gods, the others tend to come quite some in a big patch.
It can sort of death spiral quite harshly.
Yeah. But so I think really its replayability is coming in the Elder God randomisation. Yeah. Rather than any kind of change in difficulty that you control.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be people out there that say, if you want a really tough game, put these ones, put all the ones, because some of the Elder Gods have an effect straight away.
Yeah.
Some of them have an ongoing effect. Having all the ongoing effects could be quite tricky.
Yeah.
Because
well, I bet there's like a perfect order for the hardest game possibly that people have come up with online and stuff.
Yeah.
That would be all interesting.
Yeah. And play it with these characters, because...
Yeah, like the Huntress is amazing.
Yeah, she seemed really good. I really liked, Aaron, you played the Mystic, who was able to move the Shoggoths around. That was great because the Shoggoths are trying to, as we said, get to the gates and escape. And you could move, you could stand still. Most of the first half of our game was we arrived at the train station to do battle with evil, and you stayed on the train and looked into a crystal ball and went, "There's a monster, go away," and moved it and confused it and made it go the wrong direction.
I don't think it's not a stupidly easy game.
No, and that's, like I said, it's not massive criticism of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we'd been playing Pandemic all day. I think we were in our groove at that point.
I think we were only a turn making a mistake away from losing, which a good Pandemic game plays that way.
So, what I'd say then, just to sort of wrap this up then, what version of Pandemic should people go for? If they haven't got a version of Pandemic yet?
If they haven't got one yet, I would say the base game.
The tried and tested...
Version 2 with the rubbish plastic pieces.
Yeah,
because you get to know if you get on with the game.
Yes. And it's probably cheapish now.
It's still... it's about 30 quid.
Yeah. But it also, if you enjoy it, it gives you the most scope to expand, because there are the expansions for it.
Yes.
So if you buy the Cthulhu one, you are just stuck with that. That is all you're getting.
Yeah.
But you can buy these extra bits that we've talked about with the base game, and I do think it is the best place to start. And then branching out into Cthulhu, if you like your tentacly monsters.
Yeah. Or if you've got a regular group who love it.
Then Legacy. I mean, you could start with Legacy if you've got a regular group.
That was my initial instinct, was if we've got a regular group and you know you like cooperative games, it's probably a fair place to start, because the first game of Pandemic Legacy is normal Pandemic.
Yes.
To get you
to learn the rules and learn how to play,
And then it changes. So.
One of the things I like, because the problem with a legacy game can be that if you start wrong, if you misinterpret a rule and get it wrong in a normal game, you go, "Oh, shouldn't do that next time."
Yeah.
Or, "Oh, we missed that. Oh, we would have won, or we shouldn't have won." If you do that in a legacy game and stick a down or rip up a card and it's not the right thing, or you've been doing it wrong, and then there's, you're looking back at logs and go, whoever has won the most game, but Jeff shouldn't have won because he did the thing wrong. It can be a problem. So, knowing that the first game of Pandemic Legacy is just basic thing. If you're new to it and you do start there, don't just play it through once. Play 3 or 4 games of that first thing.
I'm fairly sure it actually recommends that in the instructions.
Yeah. I mean, I really quite liked Pandemic Cthulhu. I enjoyed that. I quite happily play that more because I think it just appeals to me.
But it's the setting.
Yeah, I like the horror thing. I like the fact that you can go mad.
Yeah.
And then there's a drawback to your character. So my character was the driver. We decided he had a bus full of kidnapped cultists. Just chucking them in the back. So he could
again, they fall out a window. And,
So whenever he moved, rather than just moving one space, he could move 1 or 2. However, if he was to go mad, he starts driving his bus really quickly to keep away from the madness and the things he thinks are following that probably are.
Yeah.
He just didn't realise before. And he has to move 2 spaces.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there's no spot on the board you can't get to, because you can sort of go around in a triangle.
You found a triangle where you were reversing your bus.
Yeah, and I kind of I basically drove around the roundabout until I could pick the exit that I chose that I wanted. And that was, so that it didn't ruin it for me. I wasn't incapable of joining in the gap, but it was a hindrance.
Yeah, as it should be.
And I quite liked that. I think that adds the potential for the game to feel more different each time you play it. So, Aaron, your recommendation as Lord of Nurgle?
I think I'd probably lean the same way as Joe did, go with the base game, which you can expand on later. But if you've happened to have a couple of games of Pandemic and enjoy it, definitely go.
Do you know what I think is a better question?
Yeah.
Because I think starting with the base game is probably the best way to go.
Yeah.
What's the best expansion?
I like In the Lab the best.
Yeah.
Because one of the nice pieces do add a lovely element to it, and that the experimentation side of things really alters the game massively compared to the others.
Yeah, as much as I liked the bits we played from on the Brink, I really like the sound of the massive nerdiness of In the Lab. It really that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it feels like doing biology experiments.
Yeah.
With little cubes.
I kind of want to drag it into uni and make some of the biologist people play it and go, what do you think of this?
Whereas for me, the thing that appealed to me most actually was the On the Brink, the hidden movement, the one single person working against the group.
Yeah.
That appeals to me more as my sort of game.
That's what you like.
Yeah. I like the kind of the sneaky underhandedness of it.
Yeah.
2 last questions then. Do we think that Pandemic as a series is now kind of burnt out, or where do we think it might go in future? I mean, they've talked about Legacy Season 2, for instance, which is coming out soon.
Yeah, I've seen the back of the box.
Yeah,
which I think it might have spoiled something for me. Unfortunately,
was the board on fire?
Just jug of napalm next to it.
Yeah,
which I think that could be quite interesting because
that'll be a first, won't it?
Yeah, an expansion to a Legacy game, which implies that possibly all the Legacy games end in a similar way if they're going to expand that way.
Or it might assume, like they do for video game sequels, they go, in this version of the game, option B was chosen in the previous game. Or
to be honest, it might have it. If you've played the other one,
this.
Depending on what happened at the end, attach the appropriate sticker.
Which I think a lot of people were wondering if would happen.
Carry on your characters. If not, these are your new characters, and you might have some very cool ways of.
But it looks like a new game, new board. You're not going to carry on with your Legacy Season 1 components.
It's not an add-on. It is a fresh game.
It's a fresh game. Yeah. I think a lot of people have either thrown away or done things with their Legacy boxes. Do we expect it to carry on and add more stuff? I mean you could re-theme it for all sorts of different things.
Oh yeah, massively.
But there's a
finite amount they can do.
There's a finite return on it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, diminishing returns and all that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see them just constantly pumping out expansions. Maybe an expansion or 2 for Cthulhu could be cool.
Yeah. I'm not sure the angles they could go with.
Well, one of you being the cultist trying to help.
Yeah, potentially.
You are just mirroring the Pandemic things, though.
Yeah, that is doing that.
Yeah.
You could do In the Lab, but have a spell book thing where you're trying to create the spells.
The book
that could be quite
cool.
cool.
The Necronomicon expansion.
Yeah,
that could be quite nice.
Yeah, but that in essence is expanding on a different mythos rather than Pandemic as such.
Yeah, but sense. I suppose you're linking it onto
a similar format.
Yeah,
but you're right. I mean, I don't think it's burnt out, but I think they're probably at their.
There's maybe 1 or 2 they can squeeze out before it just becomes. I
would be interested in what Iberium is like, because potentially that might be the you step too far because you've just basically made a Victorian Pandemic now.
Or they could have reinvented it. We don't really know.
Yeah, they could have completely
new wheels.
So finally, then, would you say that, given its kind of status and its history, is a Pandemic game an essential part of any gamer's collection?
To have the original core Pandemic, as it were. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on your group, because not all gaming groups get on with cooperative stuff.
No.
A lot of people like that competitive element, which case it probably wouldn't work.
Also, your group might have one of those people that is just a dick when it comes to these things and doesn't help and ruins it for everyone because they think it's fun.
The person I want to be, but I try not to be.
You like winning games.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to sit there and go, ha. Like, it's great fun in Dead of Winter when you can go, ha, I still won, but you didn't.
Yeah. Which is probably why the In the Brink, on the brink.
Does appeal, yeah.
But I know people like that will do stupid things for the sake of it.
Yeah. But I think, going back to what you said at the start, Pandemic demonstrates a lot of elements of games that are good. You know, it's kind of an example of a very good board game that's come out recently.
It's got loads of positives and there's only a couple of drawbacks in it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good for a board game.
Especially, one that's arguably old now.
Decade? Old?
As far as board games are concerned, I think with the amount that come out now, it's like with video games.
It has kind of skyrocketed in what's
there's a lot of chance for people to take elements of it and expand on it and do different things. But they seem to have not with this so much because it's been designed well, so it's kind of not needing to build on that much. It's done what it done well.
Cool. So that's our verdict then. We like Pandemic.
We do.
And we hope that you do too.
Yes. Just don't buy The Cure.
If you are a fan of The Cure, the Pandemic expansion, not the 80s Mooney Boys Don't Cry. So if you're a fan of The Cure and you think we've got it wrong, let us know why.
By we mean Aaron.
Well, let us know. Me and Joe can play it.
Yeah.
Aaron can sit outside and looking through the window as the rain falls down. Sad music plays. If you played a particular version of Pandemic and you think we should or shouldn't, something that we haven't mentioned, haven't gone into great detail on, especially if you played Iberia, which is the latest version, please let us know. Obviously, if you liked it, please tell the internet wherever you are that you liked it, because it really helps us out and we really, really appreciate it. You can find us, depending on where you are. You've obviously already found us, but you can find us in lots and lots of places. We are on iTunes, we are on SoundCloud, we are on YouTube. We have a website, criticaltwits.com. We're on Twitter and Facebook. A search for our name will find us on there. And you can also, if you've got some feedback, if you've got anything you'd like to say to us secretly in private, then you can contact us at criticaltwits@gmail.com.
Or message us on Facebook.
Or message us up through Facebook. Ooh. Yeah, we've had a few people do that recently, and it's great to talk to people and know we aren't just howling into the void. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Brian Ennis.
I've been Joe Lewin.
Oh, you fuck. I've been Aaron Vinsky.
And we
could do that.
We have been the Critical Twits. We will be back with you next week for another tabletop-based podcast, and we'll be back next month specifically with another board talk for board games, if that's your jam. No one says that anymore. God, how old am I? Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
For better, feta. That's not a disease. It sounds like some kind of delicious cheese.
It does, yeah.
Growing on a woman's thighs. I went too far again, didn't I?
Yeah.
Cool.